The diner sat on the corner of Maple and 6th, the kind of place people barely noticed unless they were hungry, tired, or alone. Inside, the air smelled like coffee that had been warming too long and fries that had just come out of the oil. It was late evening, past the rush, past the noise. Just a few regulars left, a truck driver at the counter, an older couple sharing a slice of pie, and him. He sat alone in the back booth. The waitress noticed him the moment she walked in for her shift, though she didn't know why. Maybe it was the way he chose the farthest seat, his back against the wall. Maybe it was how still he sat, like he was trying not to take up space. Or maybe it was the jacket, dark, worn, military-issued, folded neatly beside him instead of worn. His hands were rough, scarred. They rested on the table, unmoving. Emily had been a waitress for 3 years. She'd learned to read people fast, loud ones, rude ones, lonely ones who pretended not to be. But this man, he wasn't pretending anything. He was quiet in a way that felt heavy. She walked over with a notepad and a practiced smile. "Hey there, can I get you something to drink?" He looked up slowly. His eyes were calm but tired in a way sleep didn't fix. "Water's fine," he said. His voice was low, controlled. Emily nodded. "Food?" He glanced at the menu like he hadn't really been reading it. "Burger. No cheese. That okay, medium?" "Yes, ma'am." There was something about the way he said ma'am. Respectful, old-fashioned. She wrote it down and walked away, but halfway to the counter she glanced back. He hadn't touched his phone. Hadn't looked around. Just sat there staring at the wood grain of the table like it was saying something only he could hear. Emily brought the food herself. "Burger, no cheese." "Thank you." He didn't smile, but his eyes softened slightly. She lingered a moment longer than usual. "Everything all right?" He paused, like the question surprised him. "Yes," he said. Then after a second, "It's good. Thank you." She nodded and left, though something in her chest felt tight. She didn't know his name. She didn't know his story. But she knew this: he wasn't here for the food. He ate slowly, methodically, like every bite mattered. When he finished, he wiped his hands, stacked the plate neatly, and waited. Emily came with the check. "That'll be $14.27. He reached into his jacket pocket. His fingers hesitated. Just for a second, Emily saw it. He pulled out a few bills, smoothed them on the table, then added coins from his pocket to make it exact down to the cent. He stood up, slipping the jacket over his arm. "Thank you for the meal," he said. She swallowed. "Sir." He paused. She didn't know why she said it. It just came out. "You don't have to pay." He looked confused. I've got it," she said quickly. It's on me." For the first time, something cracked across his face. Not a smile. Something closer to disbelief. "That's not necessary. I know," she said softly. "But I want to." The diner was quiet. The truck driver glanced over. The cook paused behind the grill. The man looked at the money on the table. Then at Emily. "Why?" he asked. She shrugged, her voice gentle. "Because sometimes people just need a meal." He nodded once. Slowly, "Thank you," he said again. But this time, it sounded different. He left the money on the table anyway. "For your kindness." Then he walked out into the night. Emily stood there for a long moment, staring at the door after it closed. She didn't know it then, but that small moment, that quiet choice, had just set something enormous into motion. The next morning, Emily woke up early for her shift. It was supposed to be a normal day. It wouldn't be. As she turned onto Maple Street, traffic stopped. Police cars lined the road. Military vehicles followed, and above them, the sound of helicopters. Her heart dropped. They were landing, right outside the diner. Emily pulled her car to the side of Maple Street and turned off the engine. The sound hit her first. A deep, vibrating roar that seemed to press down on her chest. The unmistakable thump of helicopter blades cutting through the morning air. Windows rattled. Loose paper skidded across the pavement. Dust rose in small spirals near the curb. People were already outside. Neighbors stood on porches in slippers and bathrobes. A man from the hardware store had locked his door halfway and forgotten to finish. Someone across the street was holding a phone up, filming, their hands shaking slightly. 2 helicopters hovered low, black and imposing, their shadows crawling over the street like something alive. A third descended slowly, deliberately, landing directly in front of the diner. Emily's diner. Her heart skipped hard. Police cruisers blocked both ends of the road. Red and blue lights flashed silently beneath the roar. Soldiers in uniform stepped out of military vehicles with precise movements, calm, controlled, purposeful. This wasn't panic. This was coordination. Emily stepped forward without realizing she was moving. "Ma'am, please stay back." A police officer held out an arm gently but firmly. I work there," she said, pointing toward the diner. Her voice sounded thin, far away. "What's happening?" The officer glanced at her, then back toward the helicopters. "You might want to sit down." That did nothing to calm her. Her mind raced, grasping for logic. Had something happened overnight? Was there a threat? A mistake? Her eyes drifted to the diner doors, the same doors she'd watched the quiet soldier walk through less than 24 hours ago. Her stomach tightened. The helicopters powered down one by one. The sudden drop in noise felt almost louder than the sound itself. A heavy silence fell over Maple Street, thick and expectant. Then the doors opened. Men stepped out in uniform, higher rank, Emily realized dimly. Their posture was different, straighter, more formal. One of them carried a folder pressed flat against his chest. Another man followed, and when Emily saw him, her breath caught. It was him, the quiet soldier. He wasn't wearing the worn jacket this time. He stood in full dress uniform, every line crisp, every medal placed with careful precision. The morning light caught the medal on his chest, and it seemed to glow. He walked forward slowly, deliberately, his gaze scanning the crowd. And then, he saw her. For a brief moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them. Recognition flickered across his face. Subtle, controlled, but unmistakable. Emily felt dizzy. "That's him," someone whispered behind her. "The guy from last night?" Her hands trembled as she clasped them together. One of the officers approached her. "Emily Carter?" She swallowed. "Yes. Please come with us." Her legs nearly gave out. Inside the diner, everything looked the same. The same cracked vinyl booths, the same counter stools, the same faint smell of coffee and grease that clung to the walls no matter how often they cleaned. But the air felt different, heavier. The soldier stood near the back booth, the exact one he had sat in the night before. He waited while a senior officer spoke quietly to the diner manager, then turned as Emily entered. "Ma'am," the officer said, his voice respectful, "this won't take long." Emily nodded numbly. The quiet soldier stepped forward. "Miss," he said. His voice was the same as before, low, steady, but now it carried something else. Gratitude. "I wanted to speak to you yesterday," he continued, "but I didn't know how." Emily opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. I don't understand," she said. "Why are you here?" The officer beside him cleared his throat. "Staff Sergeant Daniel Reyes," he said. "United States Army." Emily's eyes flicked to the medals on his chest. "Staff Sergeant." Daniel met her gaze. "I was passing through town," he said. "On personal leave. I didn't intend for any of this to happen." "Then why did it?" she asked quietly. He inhaled slowly. "Because what you did mattered." The officer opened the folder. "Staff Sergeant Reyes recently returned from his 4th deployment," he said. "During his service, he led a unit that prevented a major attack overseas. Several lives, American and civilian, were saved as a result." Emily's chest tightened. "He's been recommended for a commendation," the officer continued. "But this visit, this is personal." Daniel shifted slightly. "I lost my younger brother 2 years ago," he said. "He was stationed nearby. Passed through this town once. Ate at this diner." Emily's breath caught. "He was struggling," Daniel went on. "Didn't talk much, didn't ask for help, just existed. One night, a waitress bought him dinner. Emily felt tears sting her eyes. He wrote about it in his journal," Daniel said. "Said it was the first time in months he felt seen." The diner was completely silent now. "My brother didn't make it home," Daniel said softly, but that moment stayed with him. He met Emily's eyes again. "When you paid for my meal last night, it felt like history repeating itself, like a message I wasn't supposed to ignore." Emily shook her head slowly. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I swear I didn't—" "I know," he said quickly. "That's why it matters." He took a step closer, careful, respectful. I requested permission to come back today. Not with cameras, not with speeches, but with gratitude. The officer nodded. That gratitude, he said, comes from more than one place. The diner door opened again. More people entered. Men and women in uniform, some younger, some older. All of them stopped near the back booth. They stood at attention. One by one. Emily covered her mouth. Daniel raised his hand in a salute. The others followed. For a small act of kindness, Daniel said, his voice steady but thick with emotion. You reminded us what we're fighting to come back to. Tears rolled freely down Emily's cheeks now. I didn't do anything special, she said. I just paid for dinner. Daniel smiled faintly. No, he said. You chose to care. Outside, the street remained closed. People watched through the windows. Phones were lowered now. No one spoke, because some moments weren't meant to be recorded, only remembered. The diner didn't reopen right away. After the soldiers left their salute and the officers stepped outside, the room stayed quiet, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Emily sat in the booth across from Daniel, the same booth he'd used the night before, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee she hadn't touched. Steam curled upward, then disappeared. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Outside, Maple Street slowly returned to life. Police cars pulled away. Neighbors drifted back toward their homes, still shaken, still whispering. The helicopters were gone now, but the echo of them lingered. Inside the diner, inside Emily's chest, Daniel broke the silence first. I hope I didn't cause trouble for you, he said. Emily let out a shaky laugh. That's one word for it. He almost smiled. I didn't expect permission to come through so fast, he admitted. But once I explained, well, people understand more than we think. Emily nodded, staring down into her coffee. I keep thinking I must have done something wrong, she said quietly, like I broke some rule I didn't know existed. Daniel leaned back slightly, giving her space. You didn't, he said. You did the opposite. She glanced up at him. Then why does it feel so heavy? Daniel looked at the table, at the faint scratch marks left by years of forks and knives and restless hands. Because kindness doesn't end when the moment passes, he said. It stays. It reminds people of things they've been trying not to feel. Emily swallowed. That hit closer to home than she expected. She hadn't always been a waitress. There was a time, years ago, when she'd planned to leave this town. She'd packed boxes once, taped them shut, written labels in thick black marker. Kitchen, bedroom, books. She never moved them. Her father had gotten sick her last year of community college. Not suddenly, slowly. The kind of illness that didn't demand attention all at once, but took pieces of a person day by day. She'd started skipping classes to drive him to appointments. Then she dropped out temporarily. Temporary became permanent. He died in the same hospital where Emily now served coffee to nurses on night shifts. After that, the diner became her anchor. Predictable, safe, familiar. A place where people came and went, but the routine stayed. She didn't mind being invisible most days. But last night, she'd seen someone who felt like a reflection of everything she'd never said out loud. You sit like someone who's always listening, Emily said suddenly. Daniel looked up, surprised. You don't fidget, she continued. You don't check exits the way some soldiers do, but you're aware, like you're waiting for something. He considered that. Old habit, he said. You learn to be quiet when noise means danger. Emily nodded slowly. My dad used to sit like that after chemo, like he didn't want to disturb the world any more than necessary. Daniel's jaw tightened. I'm sorry, he said. Me too, she replied. Then softer, I think that's why I paid for your meal. He studied her face, not intrusively. Carefully. Not because I was a soldier, he said. No, she agreed. Because you looked tired of being strong. Something shifted in Daniel's expression then. A crack, quickly masked, but Emily saw it. Daniel hadn't planned to stop in this town. He'd been driving without a destination, letting the road decide for him. After his brother died, movement became easier than stillness. If he kept going, the memories couldn't catch up. But they always did. His brother Luis had been younger, quieter, more sensitive than Daniel ever admitted. Luis wrote poetry in notebooks he never shared. He noticed small things, how light fell through windows, how strangers' voices changed when they lied. Daniel used to tease him for it. You think too much, he'd say. Luis would just smile. During his first deployment, Daniel received a letter from Luis. It talked about a diner in a small town, about a waitress who bought him dinner when he couldn't afford it. She didn't ask questions, Luis wrote. She just smiled like I mattered. Daniel carried that letter in his pack for years. When he walked into Emily's diner, he hadn't known where he was. But when she smiled at him, really smiled, something inside him stopped running. I didn't leave money because I didn't trust your kindness, Daniel said quietly. I left it because I was afraid of needing it. Emily understood that fear too well. The diner manager knocked lightly on the doorframe. We're opening in 10, he said gently. You okay, Em? She nodded. Yeah, I think so. Daniel stood. I should go, he said. I didn't mean to take over your morning. She stood too, suddenly unsure what to say. Are you staying? She asked. Just today, he said. Then I head back. She hesitated. Can I ask you something? Of course. Do you ever get tired of people thanking you for your service? She asked. He exhaled slowly. I get tired of people thinking that's all I am, he said. A uniform, a title, a story they tell themselves. Emily nodded. That's why I didn't ask, she said. Daniel looked at her, something warm in his eyes. Exactly. They stood there for a moment, neither wanting to be the first to leave. Then Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I was hoping you'd take this, he said. She unfolded it carefully. Inside was a photocopy of a handwritten page. Neat, thoughtful, emotional. She didn't know me, but she saw me. Emily's breath caught. My brother's words, Daniel said. I think he'd want you to have them. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I don't know what to say. You don't have to, he said. Just keep doing what you're doing. He paused at the door, then turned back. Sometimes, he added, the smallest kindness survives longer than we do. Then he left. Emily watched through the window as he stepped into the sunlight. She didn't know it yet, but this wasn't the end of their story. It was the beginning of something that would change the town, the diner, and the quiet way people learned to look at one another. By noon, everyone in town knew. Not the whole story, not the truth, not the soft parts, but enough to turn a small moment into something bigger than Emily ever wanted. A video had surfaced, someone's shaky phone footage of helicopters landing on Maple Street. Another clip showed soldiers standing at attention inside the diner, their faces solemn, still. No sound, just the image. The captions did the rest. Waitress buys soldier dinner. Army S. How's up the next day? Small-town kindness goes viral. Emily found out when her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. She ignored it at first. She refilled coffee, wiped down the counter, took orders like she always had. But the looks were different now. Customers watched her like she was something fragile, something rare. You're the girl, someone whispered. By mid-afternoon, a reporter showed up. He stood near the door, microphone in hand, smile too practiced. Emily Carter? He asked. Her manager stepped in front of her immediately. She's working. I just need a few words, the reporter said. People love stories like this. Real American kindness. Emily felt her chest tighten. I didn't do it for a story, she said quietly. The reporter blinked, caught off guard. Of course, he said, but people need hope right now. She looked at him, then past him, out the window at Maple Street, the same street that had been silent just hours ago. Then tell them this, she said. It wasn't about me. She walked away before he could ask another question. That night, Emily sat alone in her apartment. The photocopied page from Daniel's brother spread out on her kitchen table. She read it again, and again. She didn't know me, but she saw me. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Daniel, I heard things got loud today. I'm sorry. Emily stared at the screen, then typed, Emily, it's okay. Just strange. A pause. Daniel, strange how fast something small becomes public. She smiled faintly. Emily, strange how people think they know you from one moment. Another pause. Daniel, they never do. She hesitated, then typed what she hadn't planned to say. Emily, are you okay? This time, the pause was longer. Daniel, I am now. Emily set the phone down, her heart doing something unfamiliar. Across the state, Daniel sat in his car at a rest stop, phone in hand, watching trucks pass by. He should have been driving. Should have been heading back toward base, toward routines and expectations. Instead, he stayed. For the first time in years, he wasn't running. The town had reacted the way towns always did, pride mixed with noise. His commanding officer had warned him it might get attention. He'd accepted that. What he hadn't expected was the pull, not the fame, not the gratitude, the diner, the woman who saw without asking. Daniel closed his eyes and thought of his brother, of the letter, of how one small kindness had carried weight long after it was given. He made a decision then. The next day, Emily walked into the diner to find a small sign taped to the door. Closed for private event, 2 p.m. Her manager grinned when he saw her confusion. "You're not allowed to know," he said. "Orders from above." "Above what?" she asked. "Just be here." At 2 p.m., the diner filled, not with reporters or soldiers, but with people from town. The older couple who shared pie, the truck driver, nurses, teachers, veterans. Daniel stood near the counter, out of uniform this time. Just a man in a clean jacket, hands clasped, nervous. Emily stopped short. "What's this?" she whispered. Daniel stepped forward. "I told them the story," he said. "The real one." He gestured around the room. "They wanted to say thank you. Not for the video, not for the helicopters, but for reminding them that kindness doesn't have to be loud." A woman stepped forward and pressed an envelope into Emily's hand. "For your dad," she said softly. "The hospital. We remembered." Emily's knees weakened. More envelopes followed. Notes. Simple words written in careful handwriting. "You mattered to us too. Thank you for staying." Emily covered her mouth, tears streaming. Daniel watched her, his own eyes shining. "This town doesn't forget," he said. "They just needed a reason to remember." As the crowd slowly dispersed, Emily and Daniel stood by the back booth once more. "I didn't ask for any of this," Emily said. "I know," Daniel replied. "That's why it works." She laughed through tears. "You're not supposed to be this good at words." He shrugged. "My brother was—" Silence settled between them. Not awkward. Comfortable. "So," Emily said finally, "what happens now?" Daniel looked around the diner. At the people. At her. "I was offered a position," he said. "Training. Close by." Her heart skipped. "And?" she asked. "And I said yes." She met his gaze. "Good," she said. Outside, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across Maple Street. The town had gone back to normal. But something underneath had shifted. And it wasn't done yet. Life didn't change all at once. That surprised Emily. After the helicopters, after the crowd, after the quiet story grew loud and then slowly faded from the news cycle. The diner still opened at 6. Coffee still burned if it sat too long. The bell above the door still rang the same way it always had. But something subtle had shifted, something you couldn't see unless you were paying attention. People looked at one another a little longer now. They said thank you more often. They asked, "How are you?" and waited for the answer. Emily noticed it in the small moments, the ones that mattered most. Daniel started coming by every few days. Never announced, never expected. Sometimes he sat at the counter and ordered the same burger, no cheese. Sometimes he just drank coffee and watched the street through the window. He talked more now, but only when it felt right. He didn't tell war stories. He talked about training recruits, young men and women who reminded him of who he used to be. He talked about his brother when the memories came softly, not sharp like before. Emily listened. She didn't interrupt, didn't try to fix anything. She had learned that listening was its own kind of care. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the diner emptied out, Daniel stayed behind to help stack chairs. "You don't have to do that," Emily said. "I know," he replied. "I want to." They worked in companionable silence until the last chair was flipped onto the table. "You ever think about leaving?" Daniel asked suddenly. Emily leaned against the counter, considering. "I used to," she said, "all the time. And now," she looked around the diner, at the familiar walls, at the back booth. "Now I think maybe staying can be its own kind of courage." Daniel nodded slowly. "I think my brother would have liked you," he said. Emily smiled. "I think I would have liked him too." The seasons turned. Fall arrived gently, painting Maple Street in gold and rust. Leaves gathered along the sidewalk, the diner's windows fogged in the mornings. One afternoon, a young soldier walked in, nervous, unsure. He sat alone at the back booth. Emily didn't hesitate. She brought him ate her, took his order, smiled without asking questions. When the check came, she paused. "Hey," she said softly. "It's on the house today." The soldier looked up, startled. "Why?" She shrugged, just like she had months before. "Because sometimes people just need a meal." Across the diner, Daniel watched. He didn't interfere, didn't smile too wide. He understood now. Kindness wasn't something you claimed. It was something you passed on. The story never completely disappeared. Every now and then someone would recognize Emily, ask her about the helicopters, about the soldier. She always told it the same way. It wasn't a big thing, she'd say, just the right thing. And people seemed to accept that. On the anniversary of Luis's death, Daniel didn't go anywhere. He stayed in town. He and Emily sat together at the back booth after closing. The diner lights dimmed low. Outside, the street was quiet. "I used to think grief was something you survived," Daniel said. "Like a storm." "And now?" Emily asked. "Now I think it's more like a scar," he replied. "It doesn't disappear. You just learn how to live with it." Emily reached across the table and rested her hand over his. "You don't have to carry it alone," she said. Daniel's eyes filled, but he didn't look away. "I know," he said. "That mattered more than anything." Months later, Daniel stood in front of a small group of recruits during training. He told them many things, about discipline, responsibility, and service. Before dismissing them, he added one last thing. "Never underestimate the power of quiet kindness," he said. "It might save you, or someone else." None of them knew where that lesson came from. They didn't need to. Emily made a decision too. She enrolled in evening classes, slowly, carefully, not because she felt she had to leave, but because she wanted to grow. The diner manager hugged her when she told him. "You're not going anywhere," he said firmly. "You're just expanding." She liked that word, expanding. One night, as snow dusted Maple Street and the diner glowed warmly against the cold, Daniel stood beside Emily outside her apartment building. "I might be reassigned next year," he said quietly. "Nothing certain." Emily nodded, her breath visible in the air. "We'll deal with it," she said. He smiled. "That's what I was hoping you'd say." He reached into his jacket pocket, not nervously this time, and pulled out something small. It wasn't a ring. It was a folded piece of paper. Emily recognized the handwriting instantly. She didn't know me, but she saw me. "I carry this with me," Daniel said, "everywhere. But I think I don't need to carry it alone anymore." Emily folded it carefully and slipped it into her coat. "I'll keep it safe," she said. He leaned in and kissed her forehead, gentle and certain. Years later, someone would ask Emily about the helicopters. She would smile and tell the story, not with drama, not with pride, but with quiet understanding. She would say, "It started with a tired man in a diner, and a choice to care. That's all." And that would be enough. Because some stories aren't meant to end loudly. Some are meant to live on, in the way we see each other, in the way we choose kindness, and in the moments we decide to stay.